All right, everyone, welcome back to Language Arts class here. And today we are going to finish up with section 2, or part 1, section 2 of the Odyssey, which will be the finality of Odysseus's battle between himself and Polyphemus, the Cyclops. So we had just left off with Polyphemus being blinded by Odysseus, and Odysseus having told Polyphemus that his name was nobody. When Polyphemus cries out, the other Cyclops who come by essentially think he's playing a joke, or they don't know what's happening, so they end up leaving. All right, going down then, we are going to start here, line 364 on page 963, and we'll pick up here with, "So saying they trailed away, and I was filled with laughter to see how, like a charm, the name deceived them." So Odysseus' plan worked. Now Cyclops, wheezing as the pain came to him, fumbled to wrench away the great doorstone and squatted in the breach with arms thrown wide for any silly beast or man who bolted, hoping somehow I might be such a fool. But I kept thinking how to win the game. Death sat there huge. How could we slip away? So the Cyclops, even though he's blind, opens up the door to the great doorstone, or moves the stone in front of the great doorstone, and awaits, right? Hoping for someone to try to leave, so he can grab and eat them. So Odysseus needs another plan. So it says here, "I drew on all my wits and ran through tactics, reasoning as a man will for dear life, until a trick came, and it pleased me well. The Cyclops' rams were handsome, fat, with heavy fleeces, a dark violet. 3 abreast I tied them silently together, twining cords of willow from the ogre's bed, then slung a man under each middle one to ride there safely, shielded left and right, so 3 sheep could convey each man. I took the woolliest ram, the choicest of the flock, and hung myself under his kinky belly, pulled up tight with fingers twisted deep in sheepskin ringlets for an iron grip. So, breathing hard, we waited until morning." So they essentially tie these sheep together and then hide underneath the sheep, holding on to them with this rope. When dawn spread out her fingertips of rose, the rams began to stir, moving for pasture, and peals of bleating echoed through the pens, where dams with udders full called for a milking. Blinded and sick with pain from his head wound, the master stroked each ram, then let it pass, but my men riding on the pectoral fleece, the giant's blind hands blundering never found. Last of them all my ram, the leader, came, weighted by wool and me with my meditations. The Cyclops patted him, and then he said, "Sweet cousin ram, why lag behind the rest in the night cave? You never linger so, but graze before them all, and go far to crop sweet grass, and take your stately way, leading along the streams, until at evening you run to be the first one in the fold. Why now so far behind? Can you be grieving over your master's eye? That carrion rogue and his accursed companions burnt it out when he had conquered all my wits with wine. Nobody will not get out alive, I swear. Oh, and you, brain and voice, to tell where he may be now, dodging all my fury. Bashed by this hand and bashed on this rock wall, his brains would strew the floor, and I should have rest from the outrage nobody worked upon me." So everyone else makes it out, hiding underneath these rams. The Cyclops opens up the door to allow his sheep go out to pasture, and then feels the top of the rams, but only feeling the normal wool that he would feel, he lets them all go. So that's how they're sneaking out. All right, going on, it says, "He sent us into the open, then close by, I dropped and rolled clear of the ram's belly, going this way and that to untie the men. With many glances back, we rounded up his fat, stiff-legged sheep to take aboard, and drove them to where the good ship lay. We saw as we came near our fellows' faces shining. Then we saw them turn to grief, tallying those who had not fled from death. I hushed them, jerking head and eyebrow up, and in a low voice told them, 'Load this herd, move fast, and put the ship's head toward the breakers. They all pitched in at loading, then embarked and struck their oars into the sea. Far out and far off shore, as shouted words would carry, I sent a few back to the adversary. So that means as they got loaded up and he goes out to sea, he turns to yell at the Cyclops. And this is where Odysseus's pride is going to get him in trouble yet again. Odysseus says, "O Cyclops, would you feast on my companions? Puny am I in a cave's man's hands. How do you like the beating that we gave you, you damned cannibal, eater of guests? Under your roof, Zeus and the gods have paid you." So this is Odysseus calling out Polyphemus, saying that, oh, you're big and strong, but we bested you, we blinded you, and this is what you get for eating some of my men. Going on, the blind thing in his double fury broke a hilltop in his hands and heaved it after us. So a massive stone is what he threw. Ahead of our black prow it struck and sank overwhelmed in a spewing geyser, a giant wave that washed the ship's sterns foremost back to shore. I got the longest boat hook out and stood fending us off with furious nods to all to put their backs into racing stroke. Row, row, or perish. So the long oars bent, kicking the foam sternward, making head until we drew away, and twice as far. Now when I cut my hands, I heard the crew in low voices protesting, "God's sake, Captain, why bait the beast again? Let him alone. That tidal wave he made on the first throw all but beached us, all but stove us in. Give him our bearing with your trumpeting. He'll get us in. He'll get the range and lob a boulder. Aye, he'll smash our timbers and our heads together. I would not heed them in my glorying spirit, but I let my anger flare." Okay, so essentially, by screaming at the Cyclops kind of knew where he was because he still has ears, and he threw a boulder which almost hit them and caused them to almost wash all the way ashore. So now they're twice as far out, but as Odysseus says, he let his anger get the best of him, and even though his men are saying, "Don't say anything else, just shut up and we'll get out of here and it'll be fine," but he can't leave it alone, and he yells out, "Cyclops, if ever mortal man inquired how you were put to shame and blinded, tell him Odysseus, raider of cities, took your eye, Laertes' son, whose home's on Ithaca." At this he gave a mighty sob and rumbled, "Now comes the weird upon me, spoken of old. A wizard grand and wondrous lived here, Telemus, a son of Eurystheus, great length of days. He had in wizardry come upon the Cyclopses, and these things he foretold for time to come. My great eye lost, and at Odysseus' hand. Always I had in mind some giant, armed in giant force, would come against me here. But you, small, pitiful, and twiggy, you put me down with wine, you blinded me. Come back, Odysseus, and I'll treat you well. Praying the god of earthquake to befriend you, his son I am, for he by his avowal fathered me, and if he will, he may heal me of this black wound, he and no other of all the happy gods or mortal men." So essentially, this is, it can be kind of confusing, but essentially, Polyphemus is saying that I underestimated you, right? If you come back here, I would mess you up, I would treat you well. But most importantly, he says, that I am the son of Poseidon, and I will tell my father what has happened here, right? So again, Odysseus, even accidentally, is making a mistake here by continuing to insult Poseidon, this time by blinding his son. Okay, going on, few words I shouted in reply to him. So this is Odysseus speaking. "If I could take your life, I would, and take your time away and hurl you down to hell. The god of earthquake could not heal you there." At this he stretched his hands out in darkness towards the sky of stars and prayed Poseidon, "Oh, hear me, Lord, blue girdler of the islands. If I am thine indeed, and thou art father, grant that Odysseus, raider of cities, never see his home, Laertes' son, I mean, who kept his hall on Ithaca, Should destiny intend that he shall see his roof again among his family in his father's land, far be that day, and dark the years between. Let him lose all companions and return under strange sail to bitter days at home. In these words he prayed, and the God heard him. Now he laid hands upon a bigger stone and wheeled around Titanic for the cast and let it fly in the black-powered proud vessel's track. But it fell short, just aft the steering oar, and whelming seas rose giant above the stone and bore us toward the island. So the Polyphemus prays to Poseidon to never allow Odysseus to get back home. And if he does make it back home, let it be years and years later, and let him lose all companions and return under strange sail, which means on someone else's ship. So that's the only way he would want Odysseus coming home. It says, there we ran, and then he throws another giant boulder, which misses again. It says, there we ran in, we saw the squadron waiting, the trim ships drawn up side by side, and all our troubled friends who waited looking seaward. We beached her, grinding neat keel in the soft sand, waded in ourselves on the sandy beach. Then we unloaded all the Cyclops' flock to make division, share, and share alike. Only my fighters voted that my ram, the prize of all, should go to me. I slew him by the seaside and burnt his long thigh bones to Zeus beyond the storm cloud, Cronos' son, who rules the world. But Zeus disdained my offerings. Destruction for my ship he had in store, and death for those who sail with them, my companions. Now all day long until the sun went down, we made our feast on mutton and sweet wine until after sunset in the gathering dark. We went to sleep above the washed ripples. When the young dawn of fingertips rose touched the world, I roused the men who gave orders to man the ships, cast off the mooring lines, and filing in to sit between the rowlocks, oarsmen in line, dipped oars in the gray sea. So we moved out, sad in the vast offing, having our precious lives, but not our friends. So that ends section here, which ends our section 2. Essentially, Odysseus tries to make up for sort of insulting Poseidon by trying to appease Zeus with some offerings, some burnt thigh bones, it says here. But it says it does not work because there is destruction for my ships and death for those who sail with me in store. So a little bit of foreshadowing here, telling us what's going to happen. All right, that's it for this video, and I will talk to everyone later.